Welcome everybody, this is Wilco 737 doing a short tutorial video for the Boeing 747. In this case I am using the FSX, the good old one, and the BMGG 747-400. You can see it here already parked at the gate in the cold and so-called dark cockpit, so the airplane switched off completely, so no lights, no air conditioner, nothing, cold and dark. So let's get into the cockpit first and make yourself familiar with it. I guess most of you guys know how to work with the 747 a little bit, or I guess many of you are already pros, so maybe this video is nothing new to you. Nevertheless, I'm trying to explain a little things, few things, show you something. So yeah, let's see, and I hope you like it. Well, this is the overhead panel. Even if the airplane's already built a couple of years ago, I think it's quite structured. You have the engine control up there, which you barely use in the daily operation, the inertial reference system, so-called IRS, for the navigation systems. Then basically you have here all the electronics, utility buses, standby power, APU switch, battery, all the generators, bus tie breakers, generator, drive disconnects. Right below you have the hydraulic panel with the indication lights for the hydraulic status, the 4 hydraulic systems with their switches, and the 4 switches for the engine driven hydraulic pumps. Up here, something you never use in real life, the 4 fire engine switches for each engine, where you can discharge the fire suppression system if there's a fire reported in the engine. Well, the same here for the APU, the auxiliary power unit in the tail of the airplane, and something you hopefully don't need as well in real life, it's the cargo fire suppression system for the forward and aft cargo compartment if you have a smoke indication down there. Well, this is the fuel jettison system, so the landing weight of our airplanes are a lot lower than the takeoff weight, so you can land with a max takeoff weight, but it's definitely overweight landing and should be avoided. So if it's not an emergency where you have to land immediately, you will fly somewhere, dump some fuel, and then land again close or below, even slightly above max landing weight. Right next to it you have the engine start panel with the 4 engine start switches, the ignition, continuous ignition. You simply need it only during precipitation, and normal ops you hardly ever use that switch. Single or both for the ignition, and you have 2 different ignition systems. The auto start switch needs to be on, so that the airplane is doing the engine start pretty much automatically, or even recognize some engine start malfunctions. So as long as the start switch is on, you don't need to do a lot. Then you have the fuel panel with all the fuel pumps for the tanks. Main tank 4 with the override pumps, then the main tank 3 pumps, main 2, override 2, and main 1 pumps. Fuel crossfeed valves, and fuel pumps for the center tank, and fuel pumps for the stabilizer tank. Nacelle anti-ice and wing anti-ice. Nacelle anti-ice is for the inlet of the engines, so you don't have any ice build-up there, and the same for the wing, so it's just on the leading edge, so you don't have any ice build-up there. Well, the windows are heated on the airplanes, so you can switch it on or off, but during normal ops it's always on. Windshield wipers, I hardly ever use them, maybe during taxi a little bit. During approach or in takeoff you're quite fast, and the rain just moves over the windshield, so they're not very helpful to me. Windshield washer, never used that one because the view is quite good, and if it's raining you just use the windshield wiper if necessary. Passenger oxygen, well, hope you don't need that one as well. The yaw damper should be on all the time, and particle oxygen, don't need that one here. This is the cabin control for the cabin is pressurized, of course, so you can breathe normally. These are the outflow valves which regulate the air pressure in the cabin. They should be set to auto, of course, but you can use them more manually during emergency situations. This is all the pneumatic system, passenger temperature in the cabin and the flight deck temperature, then several switches for the air circulation and the recirculation for the E&E compartment, equipment cooling, obviously normal standby and override mode, high flow, and then the packs go into high flow mode and you have a higher air distribution in the cabin. Pack reset when one of the packs, for whatever reason, just quits its job. Gas burn, humidity, something we don't have in our airplanes. Well, the pack switches, yes, they're off at the moment. They have the position norm A and B. There are two different channels, channel A and channel B. You can separate the systems from each other with the isolation valves, and then you have the engine bleed switches, so that says you get the air to the packs for the engines, or if you switch on the APU and use that switch, you can get the air from the APU. Well, these are all lights. You have the test logo light, the wing light for the leading edges of the wing, so you can check if there is some ice accumulation on it, if you need wing anti-ice. The strobes are the ones on the wingtip, on the tail of the airplane, the whites flashing. Nav lights are green and red ones, left and right of the airplane. And the beacon, or we like to call it the bacon, is the red light on top and of the bottom of the airplane. Well, taxi light, looking straight to the front from the nose gear. Runway turn-off lights is left and right from the center, from the front gear, looking towards the left and to the right. And then we have inboard and outboard landing lights, which are pretty bright. Yeah, these are the switches for the lights here on the cockpit, so during night you can adjust them as you like, and the strobe light switch them on to fully bright. Yeah, this is basically the overhead panel, and this is most of the things we need during the initial startup of the airplane. So when you get in, it's all dark, all switched off, the screens are off, and first you come in and you switch on the battery. And you can see already a few yellow lights popping up because there are a few systems powered just by the battery. That's not a lot, but it's basically only the emergency things you need just in case you have complete electrical failure, which is not very common, of course, because you have 4 generators and you have the APU's backup during flight, so quite redundant. And even on newer airplanes you have the so-called RAM air turbine, the RAT, which provides you with the electronic and hydraulic pressure as well. On the 747-400 we don't have that RAM air turbine, so we just rely on the 4 engine-driven generators. So we switch on the external power, so we have some power already, and switch on the standby power to auto, and you can see now the screens are coming on, and maybe you hear the noises as well a little bit. All the systems are working. Okay, you can get rid of all these messages here. Of course they pop up because there is no fuel pump switch on and no hydraulic pressure, no brake sauce and all this stuff. So you just cancel them. And then we usually check the status if there is something there which could affect our flight. But today, of course, it's all good. So you can switch this off for now. Yeah, first we need to set the IRS to enough. That's the first thing we need, because in real life it takes a couple minutes, about 7 minutes. I set it here to 60 seconds, so it goes a little faster. We set it enough. Then let's see this a little bigger. You see IRS is a long-line mode, and here you can see how long it takes, roughly 1 minute. You go to the FMC position init page, and it wants you to enter the IRS position. You can use the GPS position, which is pretty much accurate. So enter it there, and then you see enter IRS position. For whatever reasons on the UG, usually the IRS doesn't really work properly on the first try. So I have to switch it off here again. I don't know why, it seems to be on the simulator. Let's go back to nav. Go back to the positioning page. And then it should work once the iOS version once more. So there we go. And let's see if it works now. Fingers crossed. Okay, I'll come back to that in a minute. So well, then we can start the APU. And on the status page on here, I guess you can see that the APU starts to switch on. You can see it's basically in an engine if you want to. So you have it in 2, you have it in 1, and you have the EGT, exhaust gas temperature. And you see this running, the 2 and the 1. And once they're mean values, you will see here an APU running, so that means the APU is available for air conditioning and electric supply. And see, the iris alignment has worked fine. Well, not for the center one, take care of that, but you see the BFD already, the nav display is switched on, so these are fine. Okay, the APU is running, which is quite good. Let's take care of the iris first. Switch it off one more time and switch it back to nav. Let's see if it works now, because we want to have all 3, of course, running before takeoff. Okay, now you can see APU is running, so here for the APU generators, the available lights, so that means we check the electric page. It's still connected via external power 1, so we're still redundant of the external power, and if you switch on APU 1 generator, you see it turns green here, so the whole pipeline is now driven by the AP1 generator, supplied by the AP1 generator. I can use the second 2, AP generator 2, you can see here as well. And on 747 this SSB is a split system breaker opens, so the systems are separate from each other. So APU generator 1 supplies plus 1 and 2, and the APU 2 generator supplies plus 3 and 4. Okay, so now we have the electrical power on the outline. You can see what the IR is doing. FMC usage, enter IS position one more time. There you go. Now we have all 3 IRSs aligned. Well, the next step, you just check that all the systems are set and that there are no fault lights are on which are not supposed to be on. So you can check these are all normal and these guards are closed. So you don't need these. Utility devices switches should be on bus ties and outro. These 4 needs to be on. All these switches below these covers you usually do not use in normal operation during the emergency or non-normal, how we call them. So don't touch these here. Of course you see the system fault lights and the pressure lights because hydraulic is not pressurized yet. You can see the pressure is just at 40 psi, normal values are around 3000 psi. Okay, the engine driven pumps, EDPs, should be on, but of course they show the pressure light because the engines are not running yet. So they all should be like this. In the in position, they should be closed. They should be closed here. They should be all in. Auto start on single contingency, you can switch it on, but we just don't need it right now, and this is on normal. Fuel pumps all should be on to off. Even if we don't have the engines running yet, and the fuel pumps are big, they need a lot of electronical power, so we'll switch them on later. You see that this fuel pump, the pressure line is off, so because we switched on the APU, this fuel pump was switched on automatically because the APU needs some fuel and it's coming from main tank number 2. You can see, you don't see it on here, but that's how it is. So if we switch off the APU again, the pressure light will come on. Okay, now silent jazz, we don't need that as long as the engines are not running and the weather is good. You switch on the window heat. The window heat should be always on. For doesn't matter if summer or winter, during flight, they should be on all the time. We switch on the yaw damper, upper and lower. We check that these switches are off because they're in automatic mode now. The outflow valves, if you put them to on, you can select the outflow valves manually until you've done in automatic mode. Yeah, trimmer should be on. The recirculation fans should be on. You can also double check these things here if they're on or off on the ICOS pages. Okay, now we want some air, so let's see the ICOS on the ECS page. You see external air we get right now, but the packs are off, so we don't have any air condition at all. But the APU is running, so we can switch on the APU bleed. See, this was switched on and the external air is off. So you switch on all three packs to normal. And you see the green flow bar here, so that means you get air from the APU and ducts towards the three packs. And we said earlier about the isolation valves, you can separate the systems from each other, so if the 3 has a problem for whatever reasons, you just close this valve and you see the duct pressure drops to 0 and only this side is supplied. But for normal operation, we just leave it like this. Okay, we can switch it off and then we can put on the engine lead switches to on. As the engines are not running, it doesn't make any difference for the air supply right now. Let's put on the navigation light. It looks a little nicer. If you look from the outside, you can see the navigation light. And the other one sitting on the other side. Yeah, let's go to the cockpit. Well, this is basically the first thing we do for the preparation. The overhead panel. The next would be the FMC. Or the autopilot panel. The minimum is of default of at 400 feet, put it to 0. You use hectopascals here in Germany because we're parked in Frankfurt. So switch over to hectopascals. I personally like to use the flag path vector FPV, which gives you basically an idea how the pipeline is actually moving, not only the pitch, goes up, goes down, which is as well tracked to the left or to the right. Well, ADF is not very common anymore, so many Apple still have them, but we're not using them. So basically all you need would be the R, the switch that you can see altitude. Switch on the airports, they should show Frankfurt Airport here in a minute. There you go, Frankfurt. And switch on the flight director. So you see the flight director bars. This vertical one is centered right now. This will pretty much toga, which is right off takeoff on the initial pitch. Okay, then you check here if there are any flags, like the flight track is not working, you get a yellow indication with an FD inside, so that means there is some issue with the flight director. But of course today everything's fine. Well, the nav display Takeoff is off because we've still a long gate. Which just means that enough displays the airport is shown. Because we check data as well. Some data like speed restrictions will be shown at the waypoints as well as the ETO, estimated time over. The position, it shows you the current position of the different navigation systems, like from BOR or from different IRS. But in the simulator is just perfect, so you're right here. Waypoints you can make they're visible as well, all these 5-letter waypoints, but still, there are so many of them, you can see they're quite messy, so I should have them switched off. Same with the stations, like BOR. Don't need that. Weather is unfortunately not simulated here in this version with BMDG. So, and you definitely don't want to switch on at the gate because it's a radar, so you will switch it on once you enter, or shortly before you enter the runway, to check for radar. Okay, then we have here, you can switch these displays if one of the displays isn't working anymore. you can use them all, but during normal operation you just leave them normal, as the name says. These are the standby instruments. They are not electronically powered, so they even work in complete electrical failure, altitude indicator, airspeed indicator, and altimeter. So if everything fails, these are always with you. This is just brightness control for the displays here, event record for the flight data recorder, use it to use them in auto as well, and the heading reference. True, you just need over the North Atlantic or if you fly close to the polar region. FMC master switch is at the left usually, but you can switch it to the right as well. No, and the MDG you cannot, and the radar, you can. Also the flaps of course go off because we are flying checking in the normal way, same with alternate wheel extension. You can use them. Now, we can go to the first reference side to see the gear indicator better. But they should just be closed and they should be off. And same here, we can switch around the displays. We don't know that. And as well, this flight director switches on as well, but we stick to the captain side first. Well, then we go to the center pedestal pin, which you see the frequency here, active VHF left, VHF right, and then in real life we have some VHF center as well, but it's not your Fuji. Well, you're transmitting VHF left, which is your primary source when you're talking on the radio, and on the right hand side we have the 1.5, the international emergency frequency, which you should always listen to. So if you're in trouble or rather if you're in trouble, you can always hear them. Yeah, this is the weather right now. As I said, it's not simulated here in the EMG. This is the center CDU, where we usually work with our ACAR system. Obviously on the EMG simulated. Radar trim, of course, is centered. You only need this during engine failure. So if you have a yaw moment, you can counteract this. Aileron trim, you need to use both the switches at the same time so that the aileron trim is working. And this is our telephone to record the cabin. There's a directory on the phone so you know which number to push to reach you. The most important one is 747 for us is 56. That's the upper deck where you can get your coffee. Okay, this is just for the flight simulator, the pushback. We don't have that in real life. And this is the transponder. ATC will provide you transponder code. Today, a little surprise, we get transponder code 7474. But you do not switch the transponder on, still on standby. We put it usually above during climb out because when we climb, the traffic above is much more important than the traffic below us. Outer brakes goes to RTO. Then always double check when you switch anything that the airplane actually does what you want it to do. So if you go to auto brakes RTO and it doesn't show up here, something's not right. So just always double check. No smoking, seatbelt signs on, passenger signs on, and flight deck door lock. Yeah, this is basically it, what you do. Next, we could prepare all the FMC, but we will do that in a later video. So this is basically the initial setup we do for the airplane when we get in for a cold entire cockpit. So all the systems are coming up, being switched on and checked. Yeah, that's all we do for now. So in a later video I will explain a little more about the FMC or FMS, whatever you like to call it. We'll do that in a video. So I hope you enjoyed this so far. If you have any questions, please leave them to the comment section. I'll try to answer to them. If you have any feedback or any tips for me, because this is my first video of this kind I'm doing, so just be gentle on me. So yeah, just drop me a message if you want to, and thank you very much.